Hello, 6th grade. In this video, we're going to learn how to divide decimals by whole numbers. If you already know long division and you can divide whole numbers by whole numbers, then really we're just adding a step to that process. When you're dividing a decimal by a whole number, you will first of all set up a long division problem, divide like normal, and then remember to place the decimal point in your answer, which we call the quotient, directly above the decimal point in the dividend. So we're going to practice a few examples of that now, starting with 18.45 divided by 5. So remember that this first number you see, 18.45, that is your dividend. So I'm going to set up my long division problem like this, with 18.45 inside my long division house. And then I'm dividing by my divisor, which is 5. Now, in my answer, which is my quotient, I want to make sure I put my decimal point directly above the decimal point in my dividend. So it will go here. And now I'm just going to divide like I normally do. I can't take 5 into 1, so I'm going to try dividing 5 into 18. 5 goes into 18 3 whole times, and when I multiply 3 times 5, I get 15. So I'll subtract. 18 minus 15 is 3. And now I'm going to bring down my 4 and repeat this process. So now I'm taking 5 into 34. 5 will go into 34 6 whole times. 6 times 5 is 30, and 34 minus 30 is 4. Now I bring down my 5. 5 goes into 45 9 whole times, and 9 times 5 is exactly 45. And so I get a 0 here, and I'm done. So the answer to my long division problem, which again is my quotient, is 3.69. Let's look at the next one, 8.58 divided by 12. Again, I'm going to set this up so that 8.58 is inside my long division house, and 12 is on the outside. The decimal point in my quotient should go directly above the decimal point in my dividend. Now for this problem, we have 12 that we're trying to take into 8. 12 will not go into 8, so I can go ahead and I can place a 0 here above the 8. And now I will take 12 into 85. 12 will go into 85 7 whole times. So I place a 7 here, and then I take 7 times 12, which is 84. 85 minus 84 gives me 1, and then I can bring down this 8. Now I'll repeat the process. 12 will go into 18 1 whole time. 1 times 12 is 12. I subtract, and I get an answer of 6. Now with whole numbers, you would just say that your answer here is 71 remainder 6. But because this is a decimal problem, we need to keep going until we get to our subtraction step and we get an answer of 0 here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a 0 to the right of my 8 and make this dividend 8.580. It's still the same number, but now that I have this 0 in the thousands place, I can bring it down and I can continue my long division problem. So now I'm going to take 12 into 60. 12 will go into 60 5 whole times, so I place a 5 in the thousandth spot in my quotient, and then I take 5 times 12, which is 60, and now when I subtract, I have a 0 here. So now I'm done dividing, and I see that my answer is 0.715, or 715 thousandths. Okay, now we'll take a look at number 3. So here we have 45.73, and we're dividing by 2. So I'm going to set up this problem with my 45.73 in my long division house. On the outside, I'll place my 2, And again, my decimal point goes directly above my decimal point in my dividend. So now I have a 2, and I can divide 2 into 4. So I'm going to start just with this first digit. 2 goes into 4 2 whole times, and I'm placing that 2 directly above my 4. 2 times 2 is 4, and so in this first subtraction step I get 0, and I can bring down 5. Now I divide 2 into 5. 2 will go into 5 also 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4 again, and this time I subtract and I get 1. And so now I'll bring down my 7, and I'll try to take 2 into 17. 2 will go into 17 8 whole times. 8 times 2 is 16. 17 minus 16 is 1. And then I bring down my 3. I take 2 into 13. 2 goes into 13 6 whole times. 6 times 2 is 12. I subtract, and again I get a 1 here. So that means I need to keep going, and I do that by adding a 0 to the right of my 3. So now I can bring that 0 down to make this a 10, and take 2 into 10. 2 will go into 10 5 whole times, and now when I subtract, I get 0 here. So that means my answer is 22.865. Okay, my last problem, I have 8.652, and I'm dividing that by 8. So I'll set that up just like this, with my 8 as my divisor. My decimal point and my quotient goes here, and so now I'm going to divide 8 into 8, which goes in 1 whole time. 1 times 8 is 8, and so I subtract and I start out with a 0. I will then bring down my 6. 8 into 6. Well, because 8 is larger than 6, I can't take 8 into 6, so that means it goes in 0 times. So I'm going to place a 0 in my 10th place to the right of my decimal point. And now I'll multiply 0 times 8, which is 0. And so I subtract and I get a 6 again. But now I'm ready to bring down my 5. And now I can take 8 into 65. 8 will go into 65, 8 whole times. 8 times 8 is 64. I subtract and I get a 1. So now I bring down this 2 and I try taking 8 into 12. 8 will go into 12 1 whole time. 1 times 8 is 8. I subtract here and I get a 4. So now I'm ready to add a 0. I can bring down that 0 now and take 8 into 40. 8 will go into 40 5 whole times, and when I multiply 5 times 8 I get 40, and so now I'm done dividing. So my answer to this problem is 1.0815. If you had any questions about this video, make sure you've written those down so that you remember to ask those the next time you're in class. And until then, 6th grade, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people. Take care.